The air grows cooler as October arrives, carrying with it the earthy scent of fallen leaves and the soft whisper of autumn wind through bare branches. In small towns across the countryside, pumpkins rest on wooden porches, their orange glow warming the twilight hours. This is a relaxing story about Halloween traditions, told not through fear or fright, but through the gentle rhythms of history and the simple beauty of seasons changing. If you'd like to drift into calm tonight, settle into your most comfortable position, take a slow breath, and allow this peaceful journey through time to carry you toward rest. Tonight, we explore the gentle history of Halloween traditions, not the scary stories or supernatural tales, but the real, human moments that shaped this autumn celebration. We'll walk through centuries of simple rituals, harvest celebrations, and community gatherings that transformed into the cozy traditions we know today. This is a history for sleep, a calm exploration of how people once honored the turning of seasons with firelight, food, and fellowship. Let the story unfold at its own pace. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just listen, breathe, and allow yourself to be carried back through time. Long before Halloween had its name, people gathered at the end of October to mark the close of harvest season. The fields were empty now, the grain stored safely away. In ancient Celtic lands, this time was called Samhain, pronounced Samhain, a word that meant simply summer's end. Families would bring their cattle down from summer pastures, preparing for the long, quiet months of winter ahead. The work of the year was complete. Now came a time of rest, reflection, and gratitude. On the evening of October 31st, communities would gather around large bonfires built on hilltops. These fires were not wild or frightening, but practical and comforting. They provided warmth as the nights grew longer. They offered light as darkness came earlier each day. People would bring vegetables from their final harvest, turnips, gourds, and root vegetables that could survive the cold months ahead. They roasted these over the flames, sharing food and stories as smoke drifted up toward the star-filled autumn sky. Children played simple games in the firelight, while adults discussed the season's yield and made plans for winter. There was a peaceful acceptance in these gatherings, an understanding that nature followed its own rhythms, and that rest was as necessary as work. The Celts believed the veil between worlds grew thin during Samhain, but this was not meant to frighten. Instead, it was seen as a time to remember loved ones who had passed, to honor ancestors, and to feel connected across generations. Families would set out portions of their evening meal for those they had lost, a simple gesture of remembrance and love. A bowl of stew left by the door, a piece of bread placed on the windowsill. These were not offerings made in fear, but quiet acts of connection and continuity. The preparations for Samhain would begin days in advance. Women would gather in kitchens, baking special breads and preparing dishes from the harvest. Men would collect wood for the communal bonfire, stacking it carefully on the chosen hilltop. Children would help where they could, excited for the gathering to come. There was a rhythm to these preparations, a sense of purpose and belonging. Everyone had a role to play in marking this important transition between seasons. The elderly would share stories of previous Samhains, creating continuity between past and present. Young couples would participate in their first celebration together, beginning their own family traditions. It was a time that honored both endings and beginnings, acknowledging that life moved in cycles just as the seasons did. As centuries passed and Christianity spread across Europe, the Church sought to incorporate existing harvest traditions into its own calendar. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a time to honor saints and martyrs. The evening before became known as All Hallows' Eve, which gradually shortened to Halloween. But the essence of the celebration remained rooted in harvest, community, and the natural turning of seasons. In medieval villages, people continued to light bonfires on Halloween night. They baked soul cakes, simple rounds of bread flavored with spices and dried fruit, and shared them with neighbors. Children and poor adults would go door to door, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for these soul cakes. This practice was called souling, and it carried none of the mischief of modern trick-or-treating. Instead, it was a gentle exchange, a way of ensuring everyone in the community had enough to eat as winter approached. The streets were quiet on these autumn evenings, lit by candles in windows and the occasional lantern carried by someone making their way home. Voices carried clearly through the cool air. Soul cakes, please, good missus, soul cakes. And doors would open, warm light spilling out onto cobblestone streets, hands offering bread and blessings. The soul cakes themselves were made with care and intention. Families would use their best ingredients, knowing these cakes would be shared with those who had less. Some cakes were marked with crosses, others decorated with simple patterns pressed into the dough. The spices used, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves, were precious and used sparingly, making these cakes special and memorable. Baking them filled homes with warmth and wonderful aromas that signaled the season. The soul cakes themselves were made with care and intention. Families would use their best ingredients, knowing these cakes would be shared with those who had less. Some cakes were marked with crosses, others decorated with simple patterns pressed into the dough. The spices used, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves, were precious and used sparingly, making these cakes special and memorable. Baking them filled homes with warmth and wonderful aromas that signaled the season. Children looked forward to souling night, practicing their prayers and songs in the days leading up to it. They would dress in their cleanest clothes and walk in small groups, accompanied by older siblings or parents. The ritual taught them about community, about giving and receiving with grace, about the importance of remembering those who had passed. It was education through tradition, values transmitted through gentle practice rather than stern instruction. The tradition of carving vegetables into lanterns began in Ireland and Scotland, rooted in both practical needs and folklore. On dark autumn nights, people needed portable light sources to guide them along rural paths. They would hollow out large turnips or rutabagas, carve simple faces or patterns into them, and place burning coal or candles inside. These makeshift lanterns cast a warm, flickering glow, just bright enough to light the way home. The practice became associated with a folk character called Stingy Jack, though the tale was more amusing than frightening. According to the story, Jack was a clever farmer who twice tricked the devil and made him promise never to claim Jack's soul. When Jack eventually died, heaven wouldn't accept him because of his deceitful ways, but the devil, bound by his promise, couldn't take him either. So Jack was left to wander the earth with only a burning coal to light his way. He placed this coal inside a carved turnip to create a lantern, and thus became Jack of the Lantern. People found this story entertaining rather than scary. It was a tale about cleverness and consequence, told around fires on cold nights. They carved faces into their turnip lanterns, partly in Jack's memory, partly for fun, and partly because the flickering light through the carved patterns created a cozy, welcoming glow. The work of carving turnips was not easy. These root vegetables were dense and hard, requiring strength and patience to hollow out. Families would sit together on autumn evenings, taking turns with the carving. Fathers might do the heavy work of cutting and hollowing, while mothers helped refine the features. Children watched and learned, knowing that one day they would carve their own lanterns. The finished lanterns were simple by modern standards, but they served their purpose beautifully. Carried through the dark countryside, they bobbed and swayed, casting dancing shadows on hedgerows and stone walls. They marked the presence of travelers, making the night feel less lonely and more connected. When Irish immigrants came to America in the 19th century, they discovered pumpkins, native to North America and much larger and easier to carve than turnips. The tradition transformed beautifully. Families would gather around kitchen tables in October, carefully cutting the tops off orange pumpkins. Children would reach inside, pulling out handfuls of stringy pulp and smooth seeds. The smell was earthy and fresh, distinctly autumn. The seeds would be washed and saved, to be roasted later with salt as a seasonal treat. Nothing was wasted in these careful households. Parents would help carve simple faces, triangular eyes, a rounded nose, a smiling mouth with a few square teeth. Nothing elaborate or frightening, just friendly faces to set on the porch. The carving process became easier with pumpkins, allowing for more creativity and detail. Some families would carve their initials or simple designs alongside the traditional faces. Others would make multiple pumpkins, lining their porches and walkways with glowing sentinels. When candles were lit inside at dusk, these pumpkin lanterns glowed warmly, welcoming visitors and creating a sense of seasonal celebration. The light that shone through the carved features seemed alive, dancing with each flicker of the flame. Walking down a street lined with jack-o'-lanterns became a magical experience, especially for children who saw wonder in every glowing face. In early America, Halloween celebrations varied greatly by region. In the South, harvest festivals were common, with communities gathering for simple entertainments. In New England, Puritan influence kept celebrations minimal. But as waves of immigrants arrived throughout the 19th century, Irish, Scottish, English, they brought their Halloween traditions with them and gradually blended them into something new. By the late 1800s, American Halloween was becoming a community affair focused on gatherings, games, and seasonal foods. Churches and town halls would host Halloween parties where neighbors came together. There were games like bobbing for apples, a harvest tradition where apples floated in large barrels of water, and people tried to catch them with their teeth. Challenging but harmless fun that brought laughter. The apples would bob and spin in the water, just out of reach. Players would kneel beside the barrel, hands behind their backs, trying to catch the slippery fruit. Water splashed and dripped, creating puddles on the floor. Spectators cheered and offered advice, creating a warm atmosphere of shared enjoyment. When someone finally caught an apple, there was genuine celebration and applause. There were fortune-telling games too, simple and light-hearted. Young people would peel apples in one long strip and toss the peel over their shoulders, seeing if it formed the initial of their future spouse. Or they'd look into mirrors by candlelight, hoping to glimpse their destiny. These weren't serious divinations, just playful seasonal customs that gave young people something to talk and laugh about. Other games involved nuts thrown into fires, the pattern of their popping and crackling supposedly revealing romantic futures, or strings with rings attached, swung over candles to see whose ring would be touched by smoke first. These activities created anticipation and excitement, giving structure to the evening's entertainment. They were simple enough that anyone could participate, yet engaging enough to hold interest throughout the night. Tables would be laden with harvest foods, apple cider, pumpkin pie, roasted nuts, popcorn balls made with molasses. The emphasis was on abundance, gratitude, and community. Fresh cider was pressed from local apples, served warm with cinnamon sticks. Pumpkin pies, made from recipes passed down through generations, filled the air with the scent of spice. Roasted chestnuts and walnuts, harvested just weeks before, were still warm from the oven. Popcorn balls, sticky with molasses, were wrapped in wax paper for children to take home. Everything tasted of autumn, of harvest completed and winter approaching. Halloween was becoming an autumn celebration that marked the season's change with warmth and togetherness rather than fear. The modern tradition of trick-or-treating emerged gradually in the early 20th century. It drew from several older customs. The medieval practice of souling, Scottish guising, where children performed songs or tricks in exchange for treats, and American pranking traditions. In the early 1900s, Halloween night had become associated with mild mischief. Young people might soap windows, move garden gates, or tip over outhouses. Pranks that were more annoying than harmful. Communities wanted to redirect this energy towards something more positive and inclusive. During the 1920s and 30s, civic organizations and parents began organizing structured Halloween activities. They encouraged children to dress in costumes and go door to door, but to offer entertainment, a song, a joke, a simple performance, in exchange for treats. This was meant to preserve the playful spirit of Halloween while creating positive community interactions. The phrase trick or treat emerged around this time, though initially it meant perform a trick or receive a treat, not the playful threat it might imply today. Children would knock on doors, offer their entertainment, and receive apples, nuts, homemade cookies, or pennies in return. Some children sang songs, learned especially for the occasion. Others recited poems or performed simple magic tricks. A few brave ones told jokes or riddles, hoping to earn extra treats through cleverness. The performances were rarely polished, but that wasn't the point. What mattered was the exchange, the connection, the recognition of children as valued members of the community. It was a gentle exchange that brought neighborhoods together. Halloween became a night when doors opened readily, when children were welcomed, when communities expressed their care for young people through small acts of generosity. After World War II, trick-or-treating became widespread across America. Suburbs were expanding, creating safe, walkable neighborhoods perfect for Halloween visits. Families had more disposable income, making it easier to buy candy to distribute. And Americans were eager to embrace cheerful, communal traditions after the difficult war years. The post-war period brought a sense of optimism and possibility. Families were reuniting, building new lives, creating homes in new developments. Halloween became one of many traditions that helped forge community bonds in these newly formed neighborhoods. By the 1950s, trick-or-treating was firmly established as a Halloween tradition. Children would plan their costumes weeks in advance. Ghosts made from old bedsheets, hobos with painted and stubble, princesses in homemade gowns. Parents would accompany younger children, walking the neighborhood streets on October 31st as the sun set and the air turned crisp. Porch lights glowed welcomingly. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered. The evening was filled with the sounds of children's voices calling trick or treat, doors opening, neighbors chatting briefly, laughter carrying through the autumn darkness. It was cozy and safe, a celebration of community and childhood wonder. The rhythm of the evening was predictable and comforting. Walk up to a house with glowing porch lights, climb the steps together, ring the doorbell or knock, wait with anticipation. Call out trick or treat when the door opens. receive candy with thanks, move on to the next house. This simple pattern, repeated dozens of times, created a sense of adventure and accomplishment for children. Early Halloween costumes were wonderfully simple, created from household items and imagination. A child might become a ghost by wearing a white sheet with eye holes cut out. A witch's costume required only black clothing, a pointed hat made from construction paper, and perhaps a broom from the kitchen closet. Cowboys wore bandanas and toy guns. Princesses donned their fanciest dresses and paper crowns. There was creativity in this simplicity. Families would sit together at kitchen tables in October, crafting costumes from what they had. Cardboard became robot armor. Old curtains transformed into capes. Face paint created cats, clowns, and vampires. Though the vampires were more silly than scary, with exaggerated fangs and dramatic expressions. Mothers would sew simple modifications to everyday clothes, adding a tail here, a pair of ears there. Fathers would construct accessories from materials found in garages and basements. Children contributed their own ideas and decorative touches, taking ownership of their costume creation. The process of creating costumes together was part of the celebration, parents helping children decide what to be, measuring, cutting, gluing, the satisfaction of making something from nothing. These homemade costumes lacked the polish of store-bought options, but they carried personal meaning. They represented time spent together, problems solved creatively, imagination given form. A costume made at home told a story about the family who created it, about their resources, their creativity, their values. On Halloween night, neighborhoods filled with these homemade characters. A parade of creativity and care, each costume telling a small story about the family who made it. Beyond trick-or-treating, Halloween parties became a beloved tradition throughout the 20th century. Schools hosted Halloween celebrations where classrooms transformed into autumn wonderlands. Teachers hung orange and black paper decorations, simple chains of construction paper loops, paper bats taped to walls, hand-drawn pumpkins colored with crayons. Students helped with decorating in the days before the party, standing on chairs to reach high places, carefully taping creations to windows and bulletin boards. Children wore their costumes to school, parading through hallways while parents watched and smiled. The costume parade was a highlight, with each class walking through the school while others watched and applauded. There was no competition, no judgment, just appreciation for each child's creativity and participation. There were games designed for the season. Musical chairs played with Halloween music. Pin the stem on the pumpkin. Mummy wrapping contests where teams raced to wrap one person in toilet paper. Nothing elaborate or expensive, just simple fun that brought laughter. The mummy wrapping contests were particularly popular, creating chaos and hilarity as children wound toilet paper around their teammates. The results were always messy, with more paper on the floor than on the designated mummy, but that was part of the fun. Tables held treats, cupcakes with orange frosting, cookies decorated like pumpkins, apple cider in paper cups, popcorn balls wrapped in wax paper. Parent volunteers helped serve refreshments, ensuring every child received equal portions. The gym or cafeteria became a gathering place where the school community came together to celebrate. Adults hosted Halloween parties too, particularly in the mid-20th century. Friends and neighbors would gather in decorated living rooms. Someone might bring a record player and Halloween-themed music. Playful songs like Monster Mash or instrumental pieces with spooky sound effects that were more amusing than frightening. The music created atmosphere without being overwhelming, providing background for conversation and games. Decorations were modest but festive. Carved pumpkins on the mantel, paper skeletons hanging from doorways, bowl of candy corn on the coffee table, orange and black streamers draped across ceilings. Fresh corn stalks stood in corners, tied with orange ribbon. Guests arrived in costumes, though adult costumes tended toward the clever or humorous rather than scary. Historical figures, literary characters, puns brought to life through creative outfits. A woman might come as a serial killer, wearing a shirt with small cereal boxes attached and carrying a toy knife. A man might dress as a formal apology, wearing a tuxedo and carrying a sign saying sorry. These costumes sparked conversation and laughter, setting a light-hearted tone for the evening. There was conversation and laughter, simple games, comfort food. Apple cider simmering on the stove, filling the house with the scent of cinnamon. Donuts and cookies arranged on plates. Someone might have made a witch's brew punch. Lime sherbet floating in ginger ale, dry ice creating harmless fog for dramatic effect. The dry ice fascinated guests, creating swirling mists that added theatrical flair without real danger. These gatherings were warm and inclusive, celebrating autumn and friendship more than Halloween's spookier associations. Decorating for Halloween became its own gentle ritual, marking the transition from summer to autumn. In late September or early October, families would retrieve boxes from attics or basements, opening them to find their collection of Halloween decorations. There was a pleasant nostalgia in unpacking these items. Cardboard cutouts used year after year, slightly faded but still cheerful. Window clings that had adorned the same windows for decades. Ceramic pumpkins painted by children in school art classes. Each decoration carried memories of previous Octobers, creating continuity across years. A paper which might remind someone of their first Halloween in a new house. A plastic skeleton could evoke memories of children now grown. These objects became repositories of family history, their value far exceeding their modest cost. Decorating was often a weekend activity, parents and children working together to transform their home for the season. Taping paper bats to windows, arranging pumpkins on the front steps. Real ones that would be carved later, decorative ones that could be reused. Hanging a simple autumn wreath on the front door, made of dried leaves and tiny gourds. The wreath making itself might be a family project, with everyone contributing leaves collected on walks or gourds purchased at a farm stand. Some families created window displays, silhouettes of witches on broomsticks, black cats with arched backs, haunted houses cut from black paper and backlit so they glowed at night. These displays were visible from the street, announcing to passers-by that this household celebrated Halloween. They created anticipation in children walking by, who would remember which houses had the best decorations. These weren't meant to frighten passers-by, but to participate in the seasonal celebration, signaling to neighbors that this house embraced Halloween's cheerful traditions. Inside, decorations were equally modest. A festive tablecloth for the dining table, patterned with pumpkins and falling leaves. Candles in autumn colors, burnt orange, deep red, golden yellow. Small figurines arranged on shelves. Friendly scarecrows, smiling pumpkin people, ceramic black cats with painted-on whiskers. A bowl of candy corn on the coffee table, available for anyone who visited. String lights, shaped like pumpkins or ghosts, might be draped over doorways. The act of decorating marked time, acknowledged the changing season, and created an atmosphere of coziness as days grew shorter and temperatures dropped. At its heart, Halloween remained connected to harvest traditions. a celebration of autumn's abundance before winter's scarcity. In rural areas especially, this connection stayed strong throughout the 20th century. Farms would host harvest festivals in October, welcoming community members to celebrate the season. Corn mazes wound through fields, their paths bordered by tall, dry stalks that rustled in the breeze. The mazes were designed to be challenging but not frustrating, with periodic markers to prevent anyone from being truly lost. Families walked these mazes together in the afternoon sun, occasionally getting playfully lost, always finding their way out. Children ran ahead, calling back directions to parents following behind. The experience combined adventure with safety, exploration with security. Hay rides were popular. Tractors pulling wagons filled with hay bales, where people sat bundled in jackets, traveling through fields and woods as leaves fell around them. The wagons moved slowly, allowing passengers to enjoy the scenery and the season. The air smelled of hay and earth and approaching winter. Conversations were easy on these rides, the shared experience creating connections between strangers. Pumpkin patchers invited visitors to walk through fields and select their own pumpkins for carving. Children searched for the perfect shape, round and symmetrical, or charmingly lopsided. Some wanted the largest pumpkin they could find, while others preferred smaller, more manageable sizes. Parents helped carry the heavy pumpkins to wagons or wheelbarrows provided by the farm. There was satisfaction in choosing your own, in participating directly in the harvest, even if just symbolically. The experience taught children where food came from, connecting them to agriculture and the natural world. These autumn activities connected Halloween to the land, to farming traditions, to the cycles of growth and rest that governed agricultural life for millennia. Even in cities and suburbs, people maintained these connections through seasonal foods. October meant apples, fresh from orchards, baked into pies, pressed into cider, candied and given to children. Apple picking became a popular October activity, with families driving to nearby orchards on weekend afternoons. Children would climb ladders, reaching for perfect apples hanging just out of reach. The satisfying snap of an apple separated from its branch, the weight of a full basket, the promise of pies and cider to come. It meant pumpkin appearing in breads, muffins, soups, and of course, pies spiced with cinnamon and nutmeg. Home bakers would stock up on canned pumpkin or roast fresh pumpkins to make their own puree. The scent of pumpkin bread baking filled homes with warmth and welcome. It meant root vegetables roasted until caramelized, their sweetness intensified by heat. Carrots, parsnips, turnips, and potatoes, tossed with oil and herbs, roasted until golden. These simple preparations highlighted the vegetables themselves, requiring no elaborate sauces or techniques. These foods grounded Halloween in nature's rhythms, reminding people that holidays originally emerged from humanity's relationship with the earth and its seasons. What made Halloween traditions truly gentle was their emphasis on community and belonging. Halloween became a night when neighborhoods came alive with shared celebration. Streets that were normally quiet filled with families walking together. Neighbors who might only wave in passing stood on porches, exchanging greetings and compliments about costumes. These brief interactions created bonds, transforming a collection of houses into a genuine neighborhood. Children from different streets mingled, comparing candy hauls and costume choices. Friendships formed between children who attended different schools or lived too far apart for regular play dates. Halloween created opportunities for connection that might not otherwise exist. There was a sense of safety in numbers, in knowing your neighbors, in being part of a community that looked out for its children. Parents would often gather in small groups, following their trick-or-treating children at a distance, chatting with other parents they hadn't seen in months. Bonds formed or strengthened during these October evenings. Plans were made for playdates, for holiday gatherings, for mutual support. The informal nature of Halloween made these connections easy and natural. Elderly residents who might otherwise feel isolated found purpose in participating. They prepared candy bowls, welcomed children to their doors, enjoyed brief interactions that brought life and laughter to their homes. For some elderly people living alone, Halloween was one of the few nights each year when their doorbells rang frequently, when young voices filled their porches. Many looked forward to it for weeks, planning what candy to buy, how to decorate, what to say to each costumed visitor. Some would go to great lengths to make their houses welcoming. Special decorations, generous portions of candy, genuine interest in each child's costume. These elders became neighborhood fixtures, known for their elaborate displays or exceptionally good treats. Children remembered them year after year, the kind woman who always gave full-size candy bars, the gentleman who complimented every costume with sincere enthusiasm. For a few hours on Halloween night, neighborhoods became communities in the truest sense. People of all ages connecting, sharing joy, creating collective memories. The tradition transcended individual families and became something larger, a celebration that belonged to everyone. As we move deeper into this gentle history, allow yourself to settle more fully into rest. Your breathing has slowed naturally, without effort. Your body has grown heavy and comfortable, sinking into support. There is nothing more you need to learn, nothing more you need to remember. Just let the words wash over you like waves, gentle and rhythmic, carrying you toward sleep. Halloween traditions continue to evolve, but their gentle core remains unchanged. The traditions speak to something fundamental in human nature, the desire to mark time, to celebrate seasons, to gather in community, to transform darkness into something cozy and welcoming. Think of all the October evenings across generations, stretching back through time. Fires burning on hilltops in ancient times, smoke rising toward stars that have watched over countless harvests. Candles flickering inside carved turnips, guiding people home along dark paths through Irish countryside. Jack-o'-lanterns glowing on American porches, welcoming trick-or-treaters with their friendly carved faces. Each light a small gesture against darkness, each tradition a way of creating warmth and connection. The lights continue through the centuries, an unbroken chain of human warmth reaching across time. Feel yourself becoming part of this long, gentle history. You are resting now, as countless people have rested before you, at the end of October days, satisfied with harvest, grateful for community, ready for sleep. The autumn wind blows softly outside, carrying the last warmth of the year. Leaves settle on the ground, creating a rustling blanket over the earth. The earth prepares for rest, and so do you. Everything slows in October, preparing for winter's quiet. Halloween traditions remind us that darkness need not be frightening. It can be cozy, peaceful, a time for stories and connection and gentle celebration. The darkness holds comfort when we fill it with light and laughter and love. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself in the most comfortable Halloween setting. Perhaps you are sitting on a porch, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching a quiet street where jack-o'-lanterns glow. The night air is cool but not cold, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and distant wood smoke. You hear occasional footsteps, soft voices, children's laughter floating through the darkness. Or you are inside, in a room lit by candles and the soft light of carved pumpkins, the smell of apple cider in the air. The house is warm and cozy, insulated against the October night. You are surrounded by gentle decorations, by memories of celebrations past, by the comfort of tradition. Or you are walking a peaceful country path, the autumn moon above you, leaves crunching softly beneath your feet, carrying a lantern that casts a warm circle of light. The path is familiar and safe, winding through fields you know well. The lantern light dances with each step, creating moving shadows that are friendly rather than frightening. Whatever image brings you comfort, rest there now. Let the gentle history of Halloween traditions cradle you. Centuries of harvest festivals, community gatherings, simple joys, all of it leading to this moment of peace. You are safe here, held by history, connected to generations past. You are warm, wrapped in the accumulated comfort of countless October nights. You belong to this long tradition of rest at summer's end, of gratitude for harvest, of peaceful sleep as seasons turn. Feel your body sinking deeper into comfort. Your breathing is slow and easy, requiring no thought, no effort. Your mind is quiet, filled only with peaceful images of autumn. Carved pumpkins glowing with steady, warm light. Leaves falling gently, spiraling down through still air. Harvest moon rising, full and golden, over sleeping fields. Community gathered, connected, caring for one another. There is no effort required now, no tension anywhere in your body. Just surrender to the natural rhythm of sleep, as countless people have done on countless October nights, across centuries and continents. Rest comes naturally as autumn following summer. Sleep arrives gently, as gentle as leaves settling on the ground, like leaves settling onto the earth, finding their resting place, like harvests safely stored away, secure against winter, like night following day, inevitable and right. Halloween traditions whisper their final message through the centuries. Rest now, all is well, the season turns, and you are held safely in the cycle of time. Let go completely now. Release everything you've been holding. Drift into the peaceful darkness that holds no fear, only rest. Into dreams of autumn festivals and glowing lanterns and communities gathered in warmth. The gentle history holds you securely. The quiet traditions surround you protectively. Sleep comes now, soft and certain, like October rain falling on dry ground. Like falling leaves returning to earth. Like night embracing the earth in darkness that heals and restores. Rest deeply in this moment. Sleep peacefully through this night. All is well in this world. The harvest is complete. The work is done. Winter will wait patiently for you. Now is the time for rest. Deep, peaceful, gentle rest. Held by tradition that stretches back through time. Cradled by history that continues forward into tomorrow. Safe in the soft darkness of an October night that has welcomed so many before you. Sleep now without resistance. Sleep well without worry. Sleep deeply without effort. The gentle history continues its patient unfolding, and you are part of it, woven into its fabric. Resting peacefully as autumn settles in around you. Breathing slowly as leaves fall outside. Dreaming softly as pumpkins glow in the darkness. Safe in this moment. Warm in this space, belonging to something larger than yourself, sleeping now, finally, completely. The traditions rest now too, waiting for October to return. Pumpkins in patches, still growing under summer sun. Leaves still green on trees that don't yet know autumn, but the memory remains eternal and unchanging. The comfort persists through all seasons. Halloween traditions, gentle and true, waiting to welcome you again. Sleep now within their embrace, their ancient arms. Rest in the knowledge of harvest, of work completed, of cycles that continue. Peace in the cycle of seasons that turn without cease. All is well in this world tonight. All is calm in this moment of rest. The history continues its gentle flow forward, and you rest within it, safe and held, safe from all harm, peaceful beyond measure, sleeping the sleep of autumn nights, deep and dreamless and restorative.